we are there. We are in our country, Kenya, and I want to encourage everybody not to be perturbed in any way, not to be disturbed in any way. Don't live in fear. Corona will go. Corona itaisha. So what's important is just know that between me and you, one day, mmoja wetu atalala, will pass, but the world will still be there. So, welcome to our view. We just want to give our overall views about the events that's happening in the country now. Their own opinions, so we don't need to be pushed down about them.
Okay, thank you very much. So now, here are the views. Before the world outbreak of COVID-19, the country has been on a tune of BBI and nobody can stop reggae. Reaching in a particular point, we had our deputy president say that this BBI will be stopped. So what are your views on it?
They said BBI is like reggae that will be stopped. But my view on it is that the deputy president is a very smart guy. Equally with the Raila. Something funny about Raila is that Raila has mastered the politics of Kenya. The deputy president, Mr. Ruto, or rather Dr. Ruto, has learned the politics of Kenya. And regarding the issue of BBI, as per my own views, on Raila's side, BBI is fermenting. Raila is brewing. And I'm quite sure that Engineer Raila, wherever the president is sitting, he's beginning or he's trying to cook Vitendawili and the other poems that he'll come up with after the corona pandemic issue. But on the other side, the doctor is really trying to look for means and ways of how he's going to counter the proverbs of Raila. So I'll quote some of the laws that are in this book, The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. Ruto is more taking in the law number 15, the law which says, make them want to follow you, and that's the law of fickleness. Ruto is very smart, and Ruto is a very good fighter. He does not care whether he's having a second-hand person in the ring or not. He goes in the ring on his own, and he has known how to fight politics. And remember that these things, they are trying to look into the constitution and they want to change them. Some of the things are the things that Dr. Ruto opposed during the referendum of the constitution. So what has changed? But on the contrary, the engineer Raila, in the same book, he's borrowing law number 5, which says, become an elusive object of desire, the law of covetousness. Raila is very smart. He knows that in any relationship, too much presence brings burden, and too much absence brings burden. So he has learned the tactics of how to play with the Kenyan's mind and the Kenyan people in order to influence them. But as to whether BBI will continue after Corona or it will not continue, the answer is yes, it will continue. Because with Raila, it's fermenting. But with Ruto, the answer is yes and no. Yeah.
Okay. One of the measures that the government put in place is to avoid social gathering and observe social distancing. But recently, the government announced that those with restaurants and eateries should open their businesses. only if they observe all the measures that are put in place. Now, what is your take on that?
What surprises me most is the government is so much concerned with the bodily food. Maybe it's because they get tax from that directly. I don't know. It could be right, it could be wrong. I am wondering why the government is talking nothing about the spiritual issues. Why is not talking anything about reopening churches, mosques? Recently, the Christians just came from the Lent period and the Easter, of which they actually mostly celebrated it from their homes. Now, the Muslims are also in their Ramadan and have been stopped from gathering in mosques, and we don't know when they'll be finishing their month of fasting, what will happen. The big question is, what's the big interest that the government wants to open restaurants? And then they put on very big conditions that the locals who have restaurants or eateries and hotels cannot afford. Could they be, maybe some of them are having these big restaurants, they want to open them. But after opening them, the conditions they are putting out of 1 meter apart, and what the CS was saying, that you can call for a drink as you wait for your food. What about if I go in a restaurant and I ask them, nataka kuku wa kienyeji, jogo, na sio mwenye amepikwa, I would like to have a cook. And they go begin preparing it, something that can take 2 hours or 3 hours to cook. And then after the meal, what will stop me from asking for another drink? Because definitely, who will know the time that I finished the meal? So I think the government has to go back to the drawing board and strategize out once more about those policies. Or rather, they should just open them and stop giving any conditions, because they are not going to work. Those are my views.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, there are those areas that are being affected most, area like Kawangware and also in Mombasa County. And the government has been calling that people should go for mass testing. How sure is the government that that mass testing will control or reduce the spread of COVID-19?
Good question. I think the government delayed long time ago, according to me. When there was an outbreak of coronavirus, rather COVID-19 in China, those are the times that the government was supposed to take serious measures and precautions. However, it's not too late. Now they are conducting or talking about conducting mass testing. People have got their own fears, extreme fears, because if 35 quarantine areas are already closed down, meaning they are closing down all the quarantine areas, and people are afraid that if he goes for the test and is found to be having COVID-19, definitely his family, his village is going to be taken in. But the question is, on the cost of who? I'll ask a very simple question. Why does the government collect tax from people? This is a time that people really need to make use of that tax money. If they told people that if you're found to be having quarantine, inclusive with your family, your children and your wife, your husband, definitely people will go in. If I look at the Maslow's law of hierarchy needs, the first one, the physiological needs. Health is not a basic need. Education is not a basic need. A human being can survive without education. A poor man who feels he's having a headache or a stomachache, he cannot go to the hospital looking for medication. He's very much sure that the headache will go off by itself. But food, you can't survive without food. Food is a basic need. So why mass testing has a lot of challenges and it will take time. Even if the government decides to bring in the police for a forceful testing, other consequences are going to be there. Because people are afraid, people are having fears. When they go for the test, some other things are going to happen. He has no money, somebody is a hustler. What is the priority? Is it to go and look for food for the family or to go for testing? Yet, COVID-19, technically, someone can get it and still survive and get healed. So it becomes a big on the issues of testing. I will suggest that the government to catch people, especially on the mass testing. Let's say if they are giving out food donations, they should go in a particular area, give food donations, and then say before you take any food or any item, you have to be tested. Then the question is, if I met the government and the police officer tomorrow, or maybe the government officer tomorrow, how can I identify myself that I've been tested? Is there any mark? Those are unanswered questions that people really need to look into. And why are these tests just getting into places that are densely populated? Kawangware, Isli, Bombolulu in Mombasa. Could there be a different tech if there's an outbreak of the very COVID-19 in places like Karen? So we have a lot of unfinished questions about the same issue of testing.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, some other people, they think that when the government is trying to brief on the COVID-19 and trying to bring some measures, they think that the government is the one that having that coronavirus. What are the probable measures apart from curfews and lockdowns that the government can use to control the spread of coronavirus?
It's a technical question, but I'm tempted to follow what Magufuli is saying. I'm really tempted. Let people be free, but give precautions. We have different vaccination taking place nowadays. We have measles, we have chickenpox, Ebola is there. Why is corona being given a very high priority? Countries like Djibouti has no case of corona. A country like Jamaica, up to date, has no case of corona, unless they get after this shock. But the big question is, what strategies did they use that they are not getting any case of corona? My own view would be, I would suggest, let the government let people be free. Take it like any other disease. But come up with measures in different hospitals. Provide testing kits in hospitals. Provide the PPAs in hospitals. So that in case anybody becomes sick, if he goes to the hospital, or if she goes to the hospital, then the testing can take place there. It will be unconscious. People will go to the hospitals spontaneously or unconditionally. But a human being is a funny animal. If you put precautions for a human being, he becomes intellectual. Sociologically, he develops defense mechanisms on how to survive or how to overcome that issue. The lockdown was there. And the lockdown is there. But how comes people are traveling? Somebody carrying an imaginary corpse from Nairobi to Bigori. So the government, to some extent, it should let people be free, but make use of chiefs camps, make use of the DC camps, make use of the hospitals, the churches, and encourage people that before you get any service from a particular place, you must be tested. Yeah.
Now, basing on that point, that people are carrying imaginary corpse, despite the stop of movement from the most affected counties like Nairobi, Kilifi, Mombasa, to other counties. Yet, there is still spread of coronavirus to to other counties. What are your views based on the measures that can be put in place to control the spread of COVID-19?
As I just mentioned that human beings are not cows that you tether them somewhere on a rope. They are intellectual animals. And if by anything you give them conditions to do something, they develop an aspect of reasoning, because human beings are animals that use logic. They don't just use instincts. And remember that human beings are social animals. So if you restrict them from going from one place to another, they'll always have means. In fact, the government has not even restricted. The only thing the government has done, it has closed major places that people can go through, especially by use of vehicles, maybe motorbikes. But for places where somebody can walk on toes, the government cannot stop that. However, the curfews and the lockdowns, the government probably, according to my own views, it has made people to think that the curfew is coronavirus. The lockdown is coronavirus. That's the thinking. And believe me not, if tomorrow, after 21 days, if the government announces that the curfew is no longer there, rather, the lockdown from one county, Nairobi, to other counties is no longer there, people will begin moving free. People will say, okay, now the curfew is not there, so that means there is no corona. So in as much as the government might be contemplating to do away with the curfew, might be contemplating to do away with the lockdown, but it also has to think means and ways of how it's going to help people. Because people are associating COVID-19 with the curfew, are associating COVID-19 with the lockdowns. And when the lockdowns are stopped, and when the curfews are stopped, people will assume, okay, now we can interact, we can socialize, we can drink, we can do the... Remember, people are still doing this even though there are a curfew and there are lockdowns, but people are being caught behind bars, drinking and having fun.
Okay, now basing on those the curfews and lockdowns that you have mentioned and you have explained, as someone in the field of sociology and political science, do you oversee any more curfew and lockdowns after these 21 days? And if the curfew and lockdowns will not be there, do you think that people will still observe all the measures and regulations that are put in place by the Ministry of Health?
You know, with the human being, sometimes the human being conditions himself or conditions herself. It's like the issue of classical conditioning, about the theory that Pavlov came up with. The response, the stimuli, and all that. If the curfew continues, let's say for 3 months, for 6 months, and or with the lockdown, people develop a conditioning aspect. They'll get used to that. And they develop a mechanism of and how to work within that context of life. That's the nature of human beings. That's what they do. They'll say, okay, now the curfew is there, the lockdown is there, but I need to survive. I need to eat. The government does not bring food on my table. When I'm sick, I go to those of myself. When my family member is sick, I take to the hospital myself. So the government is bringing even more harm or even more burdens to me by providing the curfew. So as a human being, people will develop a mechanism on how to survive. Remember, when Raila was mobilizing people to go to the streets, if at all he was the one, this one is open for any correction. And on every Monday, people are going to the streets all over, throwing stones, and then the police, they will engage in war with the police, and they will begin fighting, and there will be killings and all that. But people could not stop going to the streets to demonstrate. They became conditioned. They got used to the system. They were so much aware and so much prepared that on Monday we were going to the streets. And even some of them go to the point whereby they would say, we have missed the tear gas. Tumekosa tear gas. Tumemiss tear gas. So they would rather go to the streets and engage with the police. Some began enjoying. That could be the same thing that's going to happen. Recently, yesterday or the other day, somebody was killed. It's alleged that he was killed by the police, which is true, or maybe which is not true. The issue is still under investigation. We can't comment anything about that. However, I oversee if people don't adhere to what the government wants based on the stoppage of spreading the virus, the government might be tempted to extend the curfew and the lockdown, but with different measures. But on the contrary, it might not, because even with the curfews, still people are drinking. Even with the curfews, still people are having social gatherings. And now it's under pressure to open churches. And now it's under pressure with the issues of the economy and how the economy is deteriorating. I look forward of probably different mechanisms coming up. But for the curfew, I think it's a dying horse. The curfew, we are seeing the last smoke of the curfew. Because the country is not in any treason. Nobody is trying to overturn the government. This is just an issue that can be can be dealt with by any other mechanisms. So, in general, those are just my views, and I would like to encourage Kenyans to keep on following the directives given by the health experts. A lot of things will come up on media that are misleading, some are not misleading, but unless something is confirmed by the health expert and by the government, then I think Kenyans, it will be very much important to just adhere and follow the directives that are given by the health experts. Simple: keep distance, at least 1 meter or 2 meters. Wear a mask anytime you're going outside, only if it's necessary for you to go outside. Stay indoor, wash your hands frequently, and I think with the time, we shall win this war. But it will take time. That's what I can assure Kenyans. Corona, we are living with it today, tomorrow, and the days to come. Ebola was there, it has not gone. Even though they have the medication, maybe the vaccine. Measles was there, it has not gone. HIV has been there, it has not gone. But we are living with it. So, it doesn't mean that when the government announces tomorrow that the curfew is over, the lockdown for traveling from one country to another is over, that now people should celebrate and jump and drink and do whatever they want to do, thinking that Corona is gone. Corona is there with us. We are going to live with Corona forever. With a vaccine, without a vaccine. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the views. Pamoja tukomeshe Corona.
Thank you.